that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Don't wanna be an American idiot.
We can make our beloved country the source of all the dreams and the opportunities that she was missing.
Welcome to the American Idiots Podcast, the show where we take the most divisive headlines and put them to the debate with our diverse group of hosts. Join us as we leave no story uncovered and spare no politician. Good Lord, I can't wait for another 2 years when we can add another clip onto the end of that and hopefully be replacing Biden. Anyway, welcome to the American Idiot Show. I am one of your hosts, Money Mike, one of your three hosts tonight. Of course, got a little bit of housekeeping before we bring in the other two. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. If you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and subscribe to the page or like the page, excuse me. If you're listening to us on our audio-only versions, of course, we want you to subscribe to the page. And then, of course, on Apple, if you would, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes if you like the content. And that way you stay in the know as far as the American Idiots and when we upload and all that good stuff. But with that being said, we have a ton to get to, and I feel like we may not disagree a lot tonight, but I feel like we're going to have a ton of opinions on these stories. So I'll go ahead and bring in my first co-host back from vacation, the one and only Manny Hispani. Manny, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man.
You look relaxed.
Well, that's good. I mean, not only did I take vacation, I came back Thursday and Friday, worked at my job, and then quit.
Oh, impressive. Impressive.
So I went back to work for doing electric work, and
nice.
And I didn't really have a lot going on today, so I actually fell asleep on the couch, and I slept until 6 o'clock.
Hey, that's a successful day if you ask me. That is a damn successful day. And now all you have to do is apply for a PPP loan, and you're going to be on your way to success in this country. Biden will give it to you. I'll tell you what.
So, yeah, it was a really, really good week, I guess. So
Awesome. Well, glad to hear that. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and bring on the third member of our team, Mr. Brad, back for a second week in a row. Brad, how are you doing this week?
Well, I'm doing great. Day 13 of Rainbow Capitalism Month, and I don't appreciate being called the third member. That's a little creepy to me. But anyway, I'm doing good.
Well, I mean, in stature. Oh, never mind.
I don't get to be the third member.
Yeah, they're in stature. Wow, where are you taking this show, Mike?
We're getting down the rabbit hole. We're talking about.
I mean, Manny you get this great intro, and it's like, now we go to the third member. It's like, well, sweet.
It's glad to have you, Richard.
I'm going to leave that alone.
Woo! Okay, with that being said, Manny, when you first posed this question in the Facebook Messenger, I actually know that you were meaning it sarcastically. But if you actually look into it, comparing the two, and we'll get to it after the news story, but when you compare the two between automobiles and actual weapons, whether it be guns or what have you, some interesting figures I'd like to see in comparing those two. But we have a story here on a car plowing into some school children in Berlin, Germany, from the BBC News.
Let's bring you more now on the breaking news we have coming out of Germany from Berlin. A car has plowed into pedestrians in a shopping street in Berlin. The latest we have from there is that one person is confirmed dead, and you can see, of course, many emergency workers there are at the scene. These are live pictures we're getting in from Berlin right now. Well, one of the eyewitnesses to the event was the actor John Barrowman, and he posted this video on Twitter from the scene.
It's really pretty bad, guys. There is all of the emergency services that are trying to help victims and people. There's a lot of people walking with limps and injuries. The car came down onto the pavement. We had dinner in that restaurant last night. The car came down onto the pavement, then has come onto the road over there, has hit somebody, then has gone down the road and come back onto the pavement down that way, and come back onto the pavement and gone through a bunch of people, gone through the photograph that I posted of a cafe, and then right into a storefront window. But the police presence is unbelievable. They are clearing out the area, but it was cordoned off. I heard the bang and the crash when we were in a store, and then we came out and we just saw the carnage. And there's helicopters coming in now to airlift people.
Pretty remarkable testimony there from the actor John Barrowman, who was at the scene, and you can hear how shaken he is right now. Well, the police are there in force. They have just given a press conference. We've been monitoring it. This is the latest from them.
Around about 10:30, a car drove into a group of persons, and in that case there were injured more than 12 persons. Some seriously, one is dead.
12 persons.
Sorry?
12?
12 persons, exactly.
So the suspect became arrested on the
Is it called suspect? Is it,
only if it's a crime.
Only, yeah, okay.
Then you know it's a crime.
Okay, so
the people.
Okay, the driver. Okay, the driver has been arrested by a police officer, and right now we're going to question. Thank you.
Is it a traffic incident, or is it kind of a terrorist?
We don't know if it's an accident or it's a crime. That's the question, the main question we are clearing up right now.
So let's just show you the live pictures again that we have from the scene. Heavy police presence there. It's been cordoned off, as you can see. A huge sense of shock in Berlin as well, because to remind you, this street is very near the scene of that fatal attack back in December in 2016, when Anas Amri, who was a failed Tunisian asylum seeker with Islamist links, hijacked a truck, killed the driver, and then plowed into a crowded Christmas market. And that was so shocking when that happened. 11 people were killed, dozens more injured. So this is very close to that area as well. So everyone processing what has happened in Berlin, but as that police officer just said, they are not sure what has happened in terms of the driver, and they are looking into it, although he has been detained. They're not saying any more than that at the moment. But about 130 emergency personnel, I've just read, are there right now.
So, Manny, here's the thought. You know, again, like I said, you said it in jest, but I've got to thinking about this since you said it in jest. If you take car bombings, vehicle accidents, drunk drivers, every incident that can happen with a vehicle, and you put all those incidents that happen in a year in one category, and then you take the weapons violence in a category, all the deaths and what have you that occur from there, I'm pretty sure they're going to be pretty damn comparable. So why aren't we storming Ford plants, demanding fucking people be banned from driving sports utility vehicles? I'm not here to make light of this. This is absolutely a tragic incident that has occurred. But what I'm saying is, I'm saying this to make light of the fact that you guys are blaming a weapon which, without a person, is completely harmless to control it, the same as a vehicle, who we all have no problem. Let's be honest, a vehicle in some cases can be more deadly.
True. I mean, if you look at Timothy McVeigh and what he was able to do with a rider van.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's actually kind of funny that we talk about this, because honestly, I do believe that there's a not a big disparity between the two. I'm not here to say again that we should be banning these things. I'm sitting here trying to point out the hypocrisy of the people that are out there screaming at the top of their lungs. Beto O'Rourke in the state of Texas berating the governor, Greg Abbott, of that state because he was at an NRA function that, let's be honest, again, like I said last week on the show, he probably had scheduled way before, didn't understand the spectrum of the situation before he could have pulled out, you know, kind of stuck in a bad situation, but berated the governor of the state of Texas for being present on that day. All of this makes no sense when you compare it to other things. Again, I've always heard this, you know, if you live your life in fear, guess what? You could step off the sidewalk and get hit by a fucking car tomorrow. You can't live your life in fear. And that's what, as much as the left wants to, again, complain about the fear mongering of the right, this is the left fear-mongering into what they want, correct?
When I shared all of that, yes, it was in jest, but the thing I was looking at was the focus being on a person instead of a tool.
Mm-hmm.
The gun is merely a tool that a person that is not in their right frame of mind is using.
Mm-hmm.
And a car being the same thing, a tool that a person not in their right frame of mind is using. So we are pointing at what's being used instead of the person or people that are using it.
I mean, and Brad, you can feel free to chime in too on this. When I say this, it's easier, honestly, to get a automobile in most cases than it is to get a gun in an automobile license, I should say.
Well, I mean,
if you get a concealed carry permit.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the Democrats are the very first ones to have used a vehicle in an assault type arena. I mean, let's just look at Ted Kennedy, for instance. I'm just saying. You know, my thing is I guess, like Manny said, and I've always said, if I have an AR-15 and it's sitting on the countertop, it has never made up its own mind to point blank shoot something. You know, but you have those types of people out there, you know, that are renegades and they're rogues, and they wear their cowboy boots and they tuck their gun, little 38 pistol in their boot with their little Brooks and dumbass jeans on, and maybe they run a wrestling show up north. I don't know.
Possible.
But point is that, you know, the vehicle, like I brought up the Oklahoma City bombing, and until Manny had said something about it, you know, I mean, are we going to ban fertilizer next? I mean, what are we going to do? There's so many instruments that can kill people. It doesn't matter. I mean, there was a stabbing in China. 11 people died. Are we getting rid of the forks? Might solve obesity in this country if we do, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, like I said last week on the show, it's all about the mental health. It's all about the disconnect that we've suffered from social media and the desensitizing of our children growing up. I mean, we're all, well, Michael, you're younger, but Manny can probably remember. I don't remember we used to drive to school with shotguns in the back windows of the trucks that we drove.
Yeah.
Nobody was shooting anybody. You whipped each other's ass. You went about it. You may have whipped somebody's ass again the next week, but eventually you stopped. You didn't go in there and go, I'm going to shoot everybody. No, that never happened. Never. Right. I don't remember it.
If you had a problem with somebody, your issue was with that person, not the entire school.
Again,
you know, and I think that's what, Manny, I think that's where social media comes into play. I think you have these renegades that get on social media and they think just because they're behind a keyboard that they're invincible, and they say things, or they can't escape the issues that are around. I mean, there's bullying. I understand that. And I do understand that as we've evolved as a society and we've become more dependent on social media, that you can't get away from it. You used to could. You go home, you didn't have to deal with it. If you didn't want it, you didn't answer the landline. Now, if you have a social media page, you know, they can find you on there and they may continue to bully you or whatever. So I can understand it. But we need to address the problems that are happening from a mental standpoint, not taking the instrument away, because if you're desperate enough to go in and shoot 19 kids and two adults in a school, I think you're going to find a way, whether you cut a gas main, you blow something up, something's got, you know, you're going to find a way to extract revenge if you're at that point in your life and mental capacity.
Yeah, especially at 16. I mean, like you were pointing out, it's a lot easier to get a vehicle than it is to get a firearm, especially at 16.
Mm-hmm. And vehicles are very dangerous, especially if you're coming home at 5:30 in the morning out from Pine Bluff, Whitehall area, Michael.
Very true. Very true.
No, man, hold on. Before we go any further, though, Manny, you got to hear this, though, real quick. Michael's the only one I know that can fall asleep, flip his car upside down, and what's in front of him? The coroner.
Yeah, that happened. That happened to everybody. First person on the scene was the coroner. No, but I mean, again, even though you make a joke about it, very true. People fall asleep. The amount of things that can go wrong with a car, again, far exceeds what can go wrong with a weapon.
Well, what was it in North Carolina? And wasn't there one in California that they associated with a Trump supporting group? Was there not a couple years ago?
Absolutely. I remember, I want to say it was around 2015-16 where the gentleman drove through the parade, or I believe it was it may have been a pride parade actually, there in, I want to say, Virginia. And plowed through that group of people. Then you have the people in California. You have the people that were talking about running over protesters. Again, I'm going to be honest. Why are we not considering what happened in Berlin as a mass incident? Why are we considering it, like Manny said, why are we not looking at the weapon? Why are we looking at the individual? But we can't separate that here in this country. It's a little asinine. Like I said last week, what I think needs to happen, we don't need stricter gun laws. We need to keep the weapons out of the hands of the individuals who cannot safely, use them or what have you.
Well, now let me ask you this. Now the Uvalde shooter, I refuse to mention names.
I don't think I've ever actually heard his name.
It's some kind of another one, but now he's the only one that was allowed. I mean, not allowed. Was the only one that acquired his firearm through a purchase. Correct. The other ones have all been either from a house or from someone.
Yeah, they had adults at home that had the firearm and they just took it off the wall.
Well, and to be fair, again, you don't blame the weapon. You blame the dumbass parents who don't safely secure their firearms. We want to sit here.
Like you were pointing out, Michael, that didn't used to be a problem. Right. Growing up, I remember my dad's hunting rifles always hanging on the wall.
True.
Didn't mean I wanted to grab one and go shoot somebody.
Good point. I see your point. Very good point. Again, though, what I'm trying to look at here is that for every argument, they obtained it through stealing their parents' gun. They obtained it through this means. That means for every point that you can point out there, I say that there's a counterpoint. Okay, that's not on the gun. That's on the parents for not locking up the gun and making sure that the gun was safe. That's on the parents for not making sure that this individual had mental health appointments and made sure that they were taken care of mentally. Again, partially on the country for the fact that we, like to bury mental health issues in this country. But again, still not on the weapon. There is nothing that a weapons ban is going to do except for take weapons out of hands of people that, again, we're going to get into this in just a few moments about some comments that President Biden made last week where he made some stupid comments. And we'll get into that, like I said, in just a few moments. But
in 2021, there was a gentleman in Wisconsin that drove through that Christmas parade, killing 5, injuring 40.
I mean, let's be honest. You can only fire a gun so many times. That car can keep on running. I mean, as morbid as that sounds, there could be bodies flying all over that car.
Right.
Hey, so again, why aren't we storming the Ford plant? Brad, any idea?
Brad
may have had a call.
No, I'm
June
back.
of 2021.
Go ahead. I'm
June of
back.
2021 in Florida, a driver slammed into spectators at a pride parade.
Yeah. I mean, and again, we're going to get into pride here in just a little bit, but fucking Brad, what I was asking, can you provide me an answer? Why are we not storming Ford plants? Because again, you can only fire so many bullets. That chamber only holds so many bullets. You can keep going with bodies flying all over the car.
I mean, I guess the argument that would be made against your point, I guess against what you're saying, could be made that the car serves, multiple purposes, whether it's emergency transport or, law enforcement transport or transport from one place to the other, while the gun was made for one specific reason, and that was to kill, whether it would be live animals or, fellow human beings in war. I guess people would argue with you and go, well, you're just being ludicrous because the car wasn't intended to kill people. It was intended as a function to transport, goods and services and people from place to place. So, that would be the argument as to why I would think you would get. As far as I know, though, and it doesn't matter. I mean, a fork, a pointed object, a blunt object, anything, a rock. If we went as far as to cancel everything that could be malicious and dangerous, well, I guess we'd have to just outlaw everything. I mean, Jesus, there's certain plants that grow in the wild that I could harvest, crush up, and put in your drink and kill you. I mean, and you're talking about mental health issues. We're not going to address mental health in America. My God, we put the biggest mental health problem in charge of the country.
I mean, funny but true. And we're going to get into that again, like I said, in just a few, because that man made some comments this week that makes me
follow something Brad was saying right there. And I agree. When they start getting into this whole language of it, they talk about a ban on assault weapons. Well, that really leaves a big, vague window because anything can be taken and used an assault weapon. It's not an assault weapon until you assault somebody with it. That being a stick, a rock, a vehicle, a gun. But yes, I think there's a big issue when you have groups that are actively trying to sue Remington for the fact that they made a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not trying to sue Ford or Chrysler or
why are we
other
not
one of
suing
these?
McDonald's for cholesterol and heart attacks? I mean, that's just the logic is dumb.
Because when you do it to yourself, it's not assault; it's suicide.
That is true.
True.
Well, and I thought about this before we move subjects. You think about it this way, and you could lead into one of the subjects that you had in mind. But you think about this: when has Congress ever really gotten serious about gun control and things of that nature? When it happens in their backyard. Okay, it took someone trying to take out Ronald Reagan before we could get the Brady Bill enacted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it takes January 6th on the Capitol steps before we can enact any kind of legislation about protesting and or uprisings or overthrowing the government type stuff. It doesn't take burning down an entire city during a protest, but it takes it in Congress's backyard. And that's another issue. This gun control thing, they're not doing this because they care about gun control. It's political season. They're going to go, well, we want gun control. And then they're going to push the agenda. Well, here, this candidate doesn't support it. So we're not going to be able to do it because of him. So if you elect this person, then we're good to go.
And let's be honest, people talked about how Trump in 2016 was preying on these 5-star families and what have you. Are you kidding me? Democrats are out there right now trying to, against all hope, win these midterm elections by fucking parading these Uvalde school district parents around like they're fucking what's the word I'm looking for? Sideshow attractions. Like they're literally, oh, look what happened in Texas. Those poor innocent families. Like, yes, obviously they're poor and they're innocent and it's terrible. But I'm pretty sure they don't want to relive that and become a political pawn because their child was killed. And again, I would also like to point out that the fucking police force in that city has just as much blame as the person with the gun for the amount of people that were killed. Because my God, they were sitting in that fucking room right next to the guy killing the fucking people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad world we live in. And until we fix the problems that are the real problems and we quit going after these euphemisms for the real problem, we're going to be in the same boat. It doesn't matter. I mean, the only way you're going to absolutely rule out gun deaths and gun acts of violence is to just take every single one of them off the street. And that's not going to happen.
You're absolutely right. Okay, so like Brad said, we're going to kind of transition into our next topic. And the question isn't the age-old shut up and dribble question. We're not talking about that, but has sports gone too political? And we're going to focus kind of on Jack Del Rio and the situation with the Washington Commanders, but I kind of want to hop around to multiple different sports because Dana White actually said something very interesting on the Pat McAfee show last week that I really actually would like to see a lot of these sports owners implement. But here we go. This story from, I believe, ESPN.
Washington Commanders defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio calling the January 6th insurrection a dust-up earlier this week and also making the false equivalence to the riots that happened in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd and others. Multiple examples of police violence directed to minorities in 2020 and the organic reaction to that. The president of the NAACP said yesterday it's time for Del Rio to resign or be fired. And we kicked this around in a lengthy discussion yesterday, Shireen, whether or not it's fair to ask that basic question. Will the Washington Commanders, a team like every other NFL team that constantly makes employment decisions about players based upon the best interest of the team, in the offseason when there are 90 on the roster, it seems like every day there's a guy that gets cut and a guy that gets signed. Guys are being terminated all the time. They'll go from 90 to 53 before week one. Best interest of the team. Best interest of the team. You could make the argument it's in the best interest of the team to move on from Jack Del Rio when you consider all things. Number one, he's not Vince Lombardi or Bill Belichick, all due respect. Number two, you've got an impact on your stadium funding situation where the bill is now dead, and one of the senators in Virginia said that Del Rio's comments were the final nail in the coffin. And number three, you may have an issue in the locker room, although we're going to play some sound here in a second that suggests otherwise. But how can you not have some guys at least wondering about that Jack Del Rio after he made those comments, Shireen?
Well, and that's been the biggest thing to me, Mike, because two things. First, Washington knew what it was getting when it hired Jack Del Rio. I mean, he's never hidden his stance on things. We talked about the 90-10 with Tom Brady. Jack Del Rio's not afraid of conflict. He puts it out there. He uses his Twitter account probably way more than any of his teams ever would like him to use it, but he does use it. You know exactly where Jack Del Rio stands, which is the only reason that he was asked about the hearings that went on yesterday is because of his stance. That's the only reason he was asked, because of things he has put out there on Twitter. Nobody else in the NFL that I know of was asked those questions this week in media availabilities, but he was, simply because he's put it out there about how he feels. That's the first thing. So they knew what they were getting when they hired him. And the second thing is, that's the deal. We've heard so many people call for his ouster, including former players have criticized him big time. Some of his own former players have criticized him big time. We haven't heard a single player on that defense yet, and maybe they will, but they haven't yet come out and disagreed with anything that Jack Del Rio said or said, I've had a conversation with Jack Del Rio, or any of those things. We've seen none of that so far. So to me, unless some of those players start to bicker about Jack Del Rio, I don't think they're going to make a move to oust Jack Del Rio.
One player who spoke out on the issue did not complain about what Del Rio had to say. Here's Jonathan Allen from earlier this week on Del Rio's comments.
This is a tough one, so forgive me, but I got to ask. Jack Del Rio, defense coordinator, has been pretty active on his Twitter lately. Yeah. Some political stuff that kind of runs counter to a lot of what players have said. Yeah. Does any of that make news in the locker room?
Not really, to be honest with you. Me personally, I stay away from it. I've heard about it, but I don't get on specifically, so I don't have to really answer the question because I really don't know. But in my opinion, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Some guys decide to share it on Twitter. Some guys don't. It doesn't make one person better than the other. And at the end of the day, you can have a difference in opinion and still respect one another. I mean, I feel like that's what our country is about. That's what our team's about. So, I mean, me personally, I don't care about his opinion. His opinion, as long as he shows up every day and he works hard, I mean, that's what I want from my defensive coordinator.
And look, I have no problem with that in concept. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but as we said yesterday, you're not entitled to your own facts. We can have a debate about whether or not the world is round or the world is flat, and that is the equivalent of having a debate about whether or not there was an insurrection or a dust-up at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. And if you watched any, some, or all of last night's hearing with an open mind and a functioning brain, you recognize that it was hardly a dust-up. And the other side of it, too, it's kind of hard for the players to speak out publicly. This is more about something they'd handle among themselves and talk about among themselves as to whether or not they have a problem. Or maybe approach Ron Rivera and say, look, you know, we're not going to air out the dirty laundry publicly, but privately, this is maybe something we need to deal with.
Well, and they all have leadership councils. Most teams do. I assume that the captains and maybe some other players are on a leadership council for the team, and that's where this needs to be addressed. And it does need to be addressed, Mike, whether they don't care about what he said or they have fierce disagreement with what Jack Del Rio said. It does need to be discussed within the team, I think, and at least within the leadership council by Ron Rivera to see where they stand on this. And I'm sure that's happening, as you said. There will be some players who talk about this. If they're against what Jack Del Rio said, we're going to hear something from some of these players at some point if they are against it.
I suspect that Ron Rivera has been working feverishly to put out the fire to the extent there is one. I think the apology from Jack Del Rio on Wednesday was something that he was told in no uncertain terms. I don't know this, but I think he was told, you either post this apology or you pack your stuff and get out of here. So we'll see where it goes. Whether or not between the end of the offseason program and the start of training camp, we have a change in defensive coordinator. That's up to, I'm not calling for it. That's their decision. They have to make that decision. But if they do, it won't really surprise me at all.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico.
Shut up, Mike Tirico. Okay, so again, I would like to point out that I incorrectly attributed that to ESPN. That was actually NBC Sports. Manny, while you're getting your thoughts together on this, I'll go ahead and start with Brad. Brad, let's just look at the comments to begin with. First off, I applaud what Jonathan Allen said as far as there's no place for this inside of professional sports period. There's no point in arguing with somebody. I absolutely disagree with what the gentleman, I think his name's Mike Florio, said there on his show, saying that there is no gray area here. What basically the left and the media has turned this January 6th insurrection into, which again, I do think is completely unacceptable the way people behaved that day and completely counterintuitive to anything that this democracy stands for. They tried to stop a legal process protected by the Constitution, yes. But this wasn't 9/11. And I believe what the January 6th Commission wants us all to believe, the left wants us all to believe, and the media wants us all to believe, is that this was the second 9/11. This was as big as 9/11. Brad, we'll start there.
Well, of course they do. I mean, they don't want you to think that be honest with you, this is what happened on January the 6th was no different than what happened on the streets of Minnesota, wasn't any different than what happened in Seattle. You know, they allowed a group of people to come into Seattle and create an autonomous zone, a city without law. You're taking one of the states in the union and you're basically saying, we run this. There is no federal and or state jurisdiction that can control what we do. We are an autonomous zone. There's no commission for that. Jesus Christ, I'm sure they probably got a stipend for doing that. So now we're going to do this. And I disagree with you this. I don't think, and I think it's bullshit that Ron Rivera was able to dole out a $100,000 fine because Jack Del Rio was tweeted something that was his own opinion.
His opinion.
Obviously, he does represent the Washington Commanders, which is stupid in of itself if we go there. But that's the thing about it. It's just we're losing the right to have an opinion unless it matches what the cancel culture wants. Well, you know what? I hope the cancel culture gets canceled.
Honestly, Manny, I'm on the exact opposite spectrum of shut up and dribble here. Hey, if you have an opinion, have an opinion. Say what you want. This is absolutely unacceptable. You can't tell people to not say shut up and dribble to LeBron James because he tweets an opinion. And
No.
give me $100,000.
Hold on, Michael. Before you go any further, what Jack Del Rio is calling the January 6th a dust-up. And what LeBron James did by putting out the name and the picture of a police officer who protected an African-American female from getting murdered by another African-American female with a fucking knife is two different things. You just put this guy on public enemy #1 list because you got a bunch of followers, sheep that only listen to what the media says. By God, we're a racist society and we hold down the pulse of everything that isn't what we want it to be. And that's bullshit.
This, in my opinion, goes back to the pussification of America. It really does. Okay. You have a bunch of people that cannot handle hearing someone else's opinions and wants to shut them up any way they can.
And let's be honest, Jack Del Rio I know for a fact that January 6th was just a dust-up, which, again, on my scale, compare it to everything else, January 6th was a dust-up. What, 2 people died? More people died in that school shooting than died on January 6th. I'm sorry, that's where we are. He never reported it as fact. That's what's funny to me. Florio says that you are entitled to an opinion, but when you report it as fact. Jack Del Rio was on his Twitter, and what do you do when you're on Twitter? A lot of people, he doesn't say as per a source, I know for a fact that January 6th was a dust-up. He stated an opinion. I'm sorry you don't agree with that opinion. Honestly, I don't agree with the full force of that opinion. But for the NAACP to get into an issue that, #1, doesn't have anything to do with race, and #2, to fucking come after a man and say, give me $100,000 because you're not allowed to have an opinion, while we, again, allow LeBron James, like you brought up, Brad, with that statement on the cop, to do whatever he wants was LeBron James fined after that tweet when the facts came out and we found out that, he was in the wrong? Because hell, LeBron didn't report that as fact. I'll say LeBron, though, was closer to reporting what he said as fact than Jack Del Rio was.
I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean,
like you said, it's the pussification of America. But I also want to point out, before we move topics here, I want to point out something that Dana White said on the Pat McAfee show last week. He said, Pat asked Dana why they never talk about politics on any UFC pay-per-view event. And Dana's response was the perfect response for me. He didn't say because they're athletes and they're paid to go out there and fight. They're paid to do that. He said, people use sports as an escape, and it is, if you want to watch that shit, go watch CNN, go watch Fox News, go watch that. If you're wanting to watch sports and fighting, come watch a UFC event. Why isn't the rest of the sports world like that? Why do we have to make a statement? Why does the NFL have to make a statement? Now Bernie Sanders is threatening to pull out, go after the Major League Baseball because they didn't agree with him on something. Like,
well, Michael, if you go back and you look, Major League Baseball, well, Roger Goodell in the NFL has been more of a political entity than any other sport. But you look at last year around this time, baseball shifted their All-Star game out of Atlanta to Colorado for political reasons.
Right.
But let's just be honest. As a 49ers fan, this all literally started with Colin Kaepernick, who decided he was going to take a stand by kneeling on his job, which is whatever. I mean, I understand that my job, your job, Manny's job is not the same as a celebrity athlete. I get it. So the same rules don't apply. But where's the outcry for someone calling for equality wearing a Castro shirt? You know, it's like we can't have we can't have equality if you're going to sit there and rep, you know, one of the most oppressive regimes in the known world.
Very true. I mean, and again, where was
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have a valid opinion or not. As long as you come out and you say, I'm for, you know, making America more, you know, of an equality-based society, then it doesn't matter what you do. You can grab an assault rifle and do a mass shooting, and you're probably going to get praised for the shit because you're going to do it. I mean, you are. It's just a sad fact. I know that is not the right comment, but I don't give a shit.
No,
Cancel me.
I agree. And I think Manny does as well. In this society that we are currently creating, like we talked about with the weapons, again, Manny wrapped it up perfectly. It's the pussification of America. We can no longer, and again, another big reason why I applaud Jonathan Allen. And of course, what does NBC Sports, the anchors there decide to say? They had to backpedal. They said, oh, well, maybe he didn't feel comfortable speaking out because he didn't give the answer he wanted. I guarantee you that there is a reason why none of the current active players inside of Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera's locker room there hasn't spoken up, because they think exactly like Jonathan Allen does. They say, you know what? It's his opinion. Cool. I don't have to respect you based upon your opinion, but you're allowed to have an opinion. This is America. This is a free country where you're allowed to have an opinion. As long as I don't go out and tell Brad for a fact that the sky is green, but my opinion is that the sky is green, then Brad can tell me I'm wrong, but Brad can't fine me for something like that. They're taking people that are giving opinions and they're lumping that in because they don't agree with those opinions on these alternate facts or whatever the hell they called it, fucking bullshit that started in 2016. They're two separate things. Donald Trump would tend to say things that may or may not have been completely accurate. He would say them as facts. He wouldn't, put them out there as opinion. Jack Del Rio says, hey, I think it was a dust-up. I think we're making a big deal about this over nothing. I think it was actually pretty equivalent to what happened in Minneapolis and Seattle. And the guy's lumped into the same category. I don't understand how Jack Del Rio was reporting facts on his Twitter page. Like, that's their whole argument is, number one, that...
But it wasn't. But the narrative is it wasn't a dust up. The narrative is that this was a strategically planned event, which, by the way, they processed over to the Capitol before Trump had even finished speaking. So it was, regardless of what it was in the eyes of all of the Democrats, it wasn't dust up. But if you think the narrative on it is that this was a planned insurrection. They were headed over there to behead Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, McConnell, all of them, and they were going to take over the government, and we were going to change the way that we ruled law for 200 plus years. And it's bullshit.
That's what the government is definitely trying to push, and it's because they are slowly trying to take away the rights of the citizens.
Exactly.
They want control, not freedom.
Exactly.
And, I got thinking about that in retrospect to how much gas prices are. Do you really think that Joe Biden and the Democrats are going to say, we're going to get off to the... No, they want this. This is a way to control you. This keeps you in check. This keeps you at bay. This keeps you from accumulating wealth because you're spending money to go to work at triple, quadruple the cost that it cost you 4 years ago.
Oh, if you don't think that January 6th thing that he referenced earlier, which we'll get to in a little bit, being in prime time, wasn't a political move, you've lost your mind. The Democrats and the left in this January 6th commission want to be the story. Again, midterms are coming up in November, and they don't want the story to be inflation is through the fucking roof. They don't want the story to be that you're paying more for gas than you have ever paid for gas. They don't want that to be the story. They want the story to be, oh, look what we accomplished on the January 6th. We made the narrative. And let's be honest, in a lot of cases, if we break it down, the January 6th commission, without a bipartisan commission, is nothing but opinion, in my opinion.
Right. Well, and like you look at it, though, the president's numbers are absolutely atrocious as far as his approval rating goes. So what's the best thing they can do? They can't campaign on, economic agenda and policy and accomplishments. They have to go on what won the election in 2020, and that was the anti-Trump sentiment. Was there some fraud? Maybe here and there. Maybe there was some on both sides. Who knows? But the majority of those people turned out to vote for Biden because he wasn't Donald Trump.
Exactly. Right. I absolutely agree.
And that's what they're doing now. They're going, God, bring on. Boy, we've got, inflation's its highest it's probably been in 50 years. Gas prices are almost at an average of $5. I wouldn't be shocked here in lonely Arkansas if we see $6 a gallon within 2 months. Now, is it big oil gouging prices? I'm sure that happens too. But and I noticed Biden came out and first thing he started talking about was make sure that big oil pays their taxes.
As bad as things were in the Carter administration, and as bad as he got defeated in 1980 by Ronald Reagan, it's going to be rough for.
Well, I wanted to ask Manny a question.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you caught Biden's little snippet there, but he said that the big oil companies had 9,000 permits to drill, and they weren't drilling. And my thought process was, well, they're probably scared to death to drill because every time they put the tip of a drill bit into the ground, AOC loses her fucking mind.
Yeah. Anytime we do start drilling, you've got all of the protesters that start coming out. You've got people talking about us needing to get off of the fossil fuels. Biden himself signed the order to cancel the Keystone Pipeline extension. So that is the biggest reason that I say that a lot of the prices in the United States are because of Biden, because he could have had a lot more oil flowing into our country.
But here's what's funny. People who don't understand supply and demand. Now, obviously, I laugh at the pettiness of the people that put the Biden stickers on the gas pumps. But I don't know if you've seen this, but recently now, Democrats and leftists are responding with oil CEOs did this, stickers on the pump. And it's absolutely ridiculous. It's honestly, if we want to look at it, it's probably a mixture of both. But you cannot tell me that Joe Biden's position on fossil fuels, canceling the Keystone Pipeline, refusing to open up enough strategic oil reserves to make sure that we're taken care of and can handle the load of Americans, especially in the summer, traveling. You're so one-sided that it's impossible to even speak with.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't watch the Monday night show that was the January 6th hearing.
Oh, we're gonna have highlights.
Well, I think I was, watching weed killer kill leaves at that point in time.
Right.
But I just think that the bottom line is that when it comes to all these issues, if you're not left, you're wrong. and then that's going to be the whole problem is, and then I think, like Manny said, that's part of the pussification of America is, you're told what to think now. It's Nazi Germany all over again, except we have a little bit more freedom for now.
Absolutely. Speaking of the left and this woke agenda, and a warning we covered a couple weeks ago from one of the Supreme Court justices saying that these type of things would happen. A would-be assassin was arrested in California this past week with a plot for plotting to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And we have a story here from CBS News.
California man is facing federal charges for the attempted murder of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The suspect was arrested near Kavanaugh's home in Maryland. Scott McFarland is on Capitol Hill with more.
The FBI says Nicolas Roske traveled across the country from California before appearing just after 1 a.m. outside the suburban D.C. home of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh with a backpack carrying a knife, a Glock, ammunition, pepper spray, and zip ties. According to an affidavit, the 26-year-old admitted he bought the gun with the intention of breaking into the justice's home and killing him. But local police tell CBS News Roske called 911 on himself. Court filings from prosecutors say Roske was upset about the leaking of that draft opinion indicating the court is poised to overturn abortion rights and was concerned Kavanaugh would rule to loosen gun laws.
You don't care, people die.
His arrest comes amid fears about the safety of the justices. There have been several recent peaceful protests outside the justices' homes. The Attorney General just recently ordered beefed-up protection at justices' homes.
Threats of violence and actual violence against the justices, of course, strike at the heart of our democracy, and we will do everything we can to prevent them and to hold people who do them accountable.
The FBI affidavit says Roske found Kavanaugh's address on the Internet. Judge Esther Salas, whose son was murdered 2 years ago at her home, is urging Congress to pass a bill to bolster security for judges and their families.
To our members of Congress, this is a life or death decision that they have to make. And for them to act now in a bipartisan way to ensure that no other judicial officer ever loses his or her life.
And Scott joins me now. Scott, the suspect had his first court appearance Wednesday. What more can you tell us? And do we know why he called 911 on himself?
No, but that 911 phone call audio is expected to be released to CBS News tomorrow, according to the local police here in suburban Washington, D.C. It was an initial appearance today for Nicolas Roske at the federal courthouse in Greenbelt, Maryland, which means we didn't hear much about the case beyond the court filings and the court documents. Both the police locally and the FBI in their court affidavit say it was Roske who called 911 on himself. The motives alleged in the charging documents and the court filings is that he was upset about the leak of that draft opinion, and that he was also upset about the recent school shooting in Uvalde, and specifically concerned that Justice Kavanaugh would be part of ruling to loosen gun laws, and that he purchased the pistol, Lana, with the intent of using it first on Justice Kavanaugh and then against himself.
Scott, you mentioned additional security measures are being put in place to keep the Supreme Court justices safe. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, extra security. First of all, at the courthouse. If you walk outside the Supreme Court right now, you'll see an 8-foot black metal fence surrounding the entire complex. From the outside, it has the look of a bit of an encampment. There's also police presence and a public street outside the Supreme Court that is now blocked to traffic, closed. So the perimeter looks very similar to the perimeter we saw here at the U.S. Capitol after January 6, 2021. But what members of Congress are considering is formal legislation to either expend more money or authorize more security for the judges, the federal judges, at their homes to protect.
Okay, I'm done with that story. I can't hear any more about what Congress is going to do. It's your fucking fault this is happening, number one. Number one, it's your fucking fault this is happening because you told the people to do this fucking shit. Number two, the guy has a fucking motive to kill somebody with a gun because he's worried about loosening gun restrictions. Am I the only one that's kind of scratching my head on that one?
No, what I'm trying to figure out is why the left wing isn't all up in arms like they have been in other cases when things look like it's against them.
Well, I mean, you got to think. August 20th of last year, Schumer comes out because of Kavanaugh, one of Kavanaugh's decisions, and he says, you will pay the price. You will pay the price for your decisions. If that is an insightful comment, I don't even know what is an inciting comment. Come on. Where's the commitment
they're
on
trying
Chuck
to hang
Schumer?
Trump on these comments that he supposedly made that pushed this whole insurrection on January 6th, but the other side says something, and it's not a big deal. Even when gunmen are shooting people at a softball field, when people are confronting politicians inside restaurants, and you're finding people traveling from state to state to go and kill justices.
Exactly. Yeah, then you got a leftist group on the internet that published all of the addresses of all of the justices in the country, or on the Supreme Court. But my whole thing is you've got to be an absolute moron. Judge Kavanaugh is the most liberal judge I've ever met in my life. There's not a guarantee that he would overturn Roe v. Wade. He was a Trump appointee, but he's the least of what you would have thought a Trump appointee was.
Here's the funny thing to me. Unless I've missed it, and again, I may have missed it, so my opinion is we don't know who drafted that opinion yet. Nobody said, okay, this was Justice Kavanaugh's draft for an opinion to overturn Roe v. Wade. Nobody said this was, anybody's draft. So why are we going after Kavanaugh? Why are we going after anybody on the Supreme Court? Again, this isn't politicians. Not to say that it's okay to do this to politicians. This is I can't say the most respected court anymore, because unfortunately people don't respect shit in this country anymore. But at one point, this was the court that when they were deciding Gore v. Bush in 2000, President Gore looked at him and said, hey, no matter what, you're not going to bash the Supreme Court. What happened to that? Like in the past 2-3 months, it has been mind-boggling to me, the disrespect to the highest court in our country, the court that decides our constitutional, protections. And they're just basically being spat on by every citizen in this country. In the matter of 22 years, we went from you will not speak against the court from a presidential candidate to, hey, I actively tell you to go fucking do this shit, which is honestly what senators said when that opinion came out.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
It comes down to the fact that basically, in a nutshell, they defend the Constitution, and the Democrats don't want the Constitution. They want a completely new Constitution, one that fits what they want.
Exactly. They want a Constitution that allows them to do whatever they want, whenever they want. We have unlimited money. We can print all the money we need. We can send out stimuluses to everybody. You know what? Just don't work anymore.
I'll tell you this. Sean one time up the point about Thomas Jefferson had written into the Constitution that it should be viewed every 200 years and amended to. And I do agree that there are some forms of pieces of the Constitution that could be brought up to speed as far as what the world is today and what it was 200 years ago. I get that. But the fact of the matter is that right now it's what we deal with, and it keeps some civility and, stability within our, ecological human society, I guess. But it's not what they want. I mean, like I said, Kavanaugh and the lady that Trump put into office, they're not true conservative people, in my opinion. They're more moderate to me. And there's no guarantee that either one of them would vote for and or against it.
Exactly. And again, you hit the nail on the head. Who said this was Justice Kavanaugh's draft? Who said this? But, you're hitting the nail on the head, Brad. It's because it was the Trump appointee. Everybody assumes that it was one of them. Everybody wants to assume because it was the Trump appointee that they were the one that wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade. They were the
But
ones.
this has been going on forever. Manny can remember the Supreme Court. You probably don't remember it. I was younger, but Manny, you probably remember the whole Anita Hill, Clarence
Right.
Thomas debacle that went on. I mean, this has been going on forever. I mean, it's not going to stop.
You're right. You're right. Manny, any thoughts on, are you pretty much with Brad and myself as far as what's led to this degradation in respect to the Supreme Court over at least the past 22 years?
Yeah, it's goes right back to what I was saying, man. The pacification of America. They cannot handle the fact that other people have opinions other than their own, so they try to shut them up any way they can. The fact that Trump was the one that has appointed these people, that's the ultimate slap in the face in their opinion, and they're trying to shut them up any way they can. So they do call out to have idiots drive from state to state to try to put an end to what they don't want.
Absolutely. It's mind-blowing. But speaking of the Constitution, I asked this question, were these offhanded comments, or is it a constitutional crisis? I think Brad put it this way, that it looks like Biden's trying to set up a tyrannical government. But we have this story from C-SPAN on some comments that Joe Biden made.
Discussed a comprehensive strategy that I'm releasing today to combat the epidemic of gun violence and other violent crime that we've been seeing in our country for far too long, that has spiked since the start of the pandemic over a year ago. Crime historically rises during the summer, and as we emerge from this pandemic, with the country opening back up again, the traditional summer spike may even be more pronounced than it usually would be. For folks at home, here's what you need to know. I've been at this a long time, and there are things we know that work that reduce gun violence and violent crime, and things that we don't know about. But things we know about, background checks for purchasing a firearm are important. Ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. No one needs to have a weapon that can fire over 30, 40, 50, even up to 100 rounds, unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests or something. Community policing and programs that keep neighborhoods safe and keep folks out of trouble. These efforts work, they save lives. But over time, these policies were gutted and are woefully underfunded. In our conversation today, we talked about our strategy to supercharge what works while we continue to push the Congress to act on sensible gun violence legislation. First, we discussed cracking down, as you heard from the Attorney General, on rogue gun dealers. We know that if there is a strict enforcement of background checks, then fewer guns get into the hands of criminals. Background checks have thus far kept more than 3 million guns out of the hands of felons, convicted felons, fugitive, domestic abusers, and others prohibited from being able to purchase a gun. And there's still too many loopholes in that system. And today, enough rogue gun dealers feel like they can get away with selling guns to people who aren't legally allowed to own them. And I might add, the Second Amendment from the day it was passed limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon. Those who say the blood of patriots, and all the stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you want to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. The point is that there's always been the ability to rationally limit the type of weapon that can be owned and who can own it. The last time we had data on this issue of who was purchasing guns was more than 20 years ago. 5% of gun dealers, turns out, in the study we did, showed that 90% of illegal guns were found at the crime scenes sold by 5% of gun dealers. 5% sold 90% of the guns found at crime scenes. And these merchants of death are breaking the law for profit. They're selling guns that are killing innocent people. It's wrong. It's unacceptable. As the Attorney General said, we're going to crack down on those gun dealers and the violent criminals they knowingly arm.
So I know it's very hard to follow that man when he speaks sometimes, because God knows I almost fell asleep about halfway through that sumbitch. But if you missed it, he said that you'll need jets and nuclear weapons to take on the government. It's a direct shot at what the Constitution says, though.
Well, you know, and like I said, I mean, honestly, the Second Amendment, arms against the tyranny. I mean, let's be honest. If we're going to if anybody was going to overthrow the government, you are going to need tanks and armored vehicles and airplanes, because the government has that at their disposal. Here's the thing that I picked up out of that. Then the first thing that I picked up on it, we're going to supercharge our enforcement of the laws. Hold on, dumbass. Are we defunding the police, or are we supercharging the police? What are we doing? And that struck me as I was going, well, didn't y'all just call to take the police, defund them? And he goes, well, we've defunded. No, you bitch, you defunded the police. Your party defunded the police. We didn't do shit. We just funded ourselves with weapons. Now, hey, if you know what, if his statistics are correct, and there's 5% of the guns that are, if that's true, then crack down on them. Go after them if they're selling illegally. I can fully get with that. If you've got a rogue arms dealer,
or 95%.
Well, yeah, and 5%, and then he's like 90%, and then he's fucking moron. But I mean, if there is a collective of rogue firearms dealers that don't give a shit about the laws, then crack down on them. But don't make it a broad spectrum gun control thing. Go after those people that are buying their weapons illegally. I own an AR-15. It sits in the back seat of my truck. And you're goddamn right, it's got 30-round magazine in the son of a bitch.
It's just, again, it's more mind-blowing comments from a gentleman who, like you said, I believe it was earlier, Brett, has these delusions of what he's going to accomplish. And number one, come November, or actually January of next year, there's not going to be shit done in his final 2 years of what will hopefully be his only term, but his first term.
Well, now there's rumblings that they're convincing him not to run.
Oh God, I hope. I really hope. Just for I don't care if we lose, as long as that man doesn't fucking become president of the United States again. That's
if I can throw a PSA out there, and this may be directed at you too, Michael, because I know if you don't vote for the Republican candidate, you're basically putting a vote in the Democrats' pocket. I don't give a shit if you don't agree with the Republican candidate or not. Throwing your vote towards an independent is a vote for the Democratic Party. Point blank, period.
Right. Absolutely. It takes away from the Republican. Hey, I did it in 2016, but guess what? The motherfucker won. Anyway, with that being said, I directly voted for the Democrat and have regretted it ever since in 2020. Anyway.
Oh my God, Manny, you see what we have to deal with?
I know what we have to deal with. I tried to convince him otherwise. He didn't want to listen. What I thought was funny was he started pointing out that crime has gone up. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, first you told people they didn't have to pay their rent, and you didn't allow people to get freeloaders out of their house. Then you told other people that they needed to start paying more money, and now you have a bunch of individuals who don't want to go to work unless they see large dollar signs to flip a fucking burger.
Oh, but I know the fix. Let's just fucking give another stimulus out. Let's just give another stimulus. Fuck it. We'll do a gas stimulus, and we'll just monthly, like the Democrats have proposed. For everybody that's thinking I'm joking, Democrats in Congress have proposed that we give a gas stimulus where the government pays for our gas usage. I think it was like $300 to $600 a month that they would give us for gas.
What are they going to pay for? 2 trips to work?
Right.
And then you want to wonder why, as the country comes back online post COVID, that all of a sudden there's a surge in crime.
Well, Manny, it all goes back to that too. You know, for what? For the better half of March of 2020, and even now, I still see people wearing masks, and I thought they were fucking ignorant 2 years ago. I think they're ignorant today. But anyway, you know, you've kept people suppressed in their home. They couldn't go see their families on holidays. There was no socialization unless it was over the phone or a Zoom meeting, which, you know, we talked about last week was good for businesses in a way. It cuts out on some of the costs that you can conduct business, but still, you isolate people for over a year and a half, and you put this insatiable fear in them that if you catch this disease, you're going to die. Not really. You got like a 2-3% mortality rate. So I'll take 97% all day. I'm still here. But, you know, and then like you said, I was in apartment maintenance during the pandemic, and I would go into people's houses and I would drop notifications off and they would open them. And then I'd go back in there a couple of days later and I'd be working on something. I'd look down on the thing and they were $2,700 in arrears over rent. And they were like, well, we ain't got to pay it back. Our daddy Biden said we didn't have to. Bullshit. It was never a reprieve. It was just it was a relief from the rent at that point.
Same thing happened at this place that I just quit, because it was the same way. They did not force them to pay. Whenever it came time to open things back up, they gave them their bill and the people simply moved out.
Well, and Brad, I don't know if you were going for this, but you know, you talking about, you know, forcing people to remain in their homes and, you know, not allowing them to see family, not allowing them to have these outside interactions. We wonder why there's a spike in mental health issues in this country. We wonder why there's a spike in the gun violence in this country. We wonder why all these things are happening. I'm not here to say that it doesn't happen, but I'm saying cause and effect.
Well, like, Manny, I know you weren't here last week, but like I was telling Michael Carnahan, and I know, Manny, you have your own you know businesses as well, whether it be in professional entertainment or whatever. But let's put it to you this way: if you're paying a gentleman $300 a week to do a job, and you force him out of his job, so you give him unemployment because of that, but then you go, you know what? There's no businesses open right now, so I feel like you need $500 on top of that or $600 on top of that. You're fostering this environment where this person that's used to making $300 a week and living on that $300, whether he's struggling or not, I'm not saying that. But now you've given this guy a taste of what it's like to make $900 a week, you know, $1,000 a week. And I say that and they can say BS on it, but I know a guy that was making after taxes around $445. Once the pandemic hit and we were forced to close, he went to $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
And you foster this, you know, and then you have people, you know, that post on Facebook, oh, I'm given the opportunity to pursue my stuff and still make money. Well, that's fine. I was always under the impression that it should have been at least $300 a week is what they should have done, you know, addition to it, to where you didn't lose your, you know, they should have taken the time to go, okay, so you made this amount of money. We're going to give you this amount of money. Your highest 40-hour weeks is what we should have done, instead of going, well, you need another $600 for what?
Yeah.
There wasn't anything open.
Not to mention 3 stimuluses on top of that.
I mean, and you know what? I got my stimulus, and everybody was like, well, what'd you do with your stimulus? And then everybody's like, I bought a PlayStation or I bought a television. Do you realize that when I got my stimulus, maybe I did the dumbest shit in the world to everybody else, but I was fiscally responsible with my stimulus. I paid my truck payment for 2 months, and I paid my rent payment for a month with that stimulus check.
Yep.
I didn't go out and buy anything fancy. And when I say that, and here's the deal. I worked at an apartment complex that was Section 8. And that means that it's government assisted. It's based on your income. When I clean up the dumpster every morning and I'm throwing lobster tails away and I'm throwing TV boxes in the trash can, brand new 65, 75-inch televisions, that tells me all I need to know about the fiscal responsibilities that this society has.
Right.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And, you know, and I've pointed that out to a lot of people, and they're like, well, huh, what are you trying to say? I'm just telling you, I'm giving you a backstory as to what I'm talking about. If I told you I was over in Chenal, where people are making $1 gazillion a week, and I say they're throwing televisions away, you know, that sets up, well, they've had the abilities. But when I tell you that these are government funded assisted living places and you're buying new TVs and new furniture with this money, but yet you're letting your $700-800 rent go to. I mean, I tell you this is where I knew America was so screwed to begin with. There was a lady that came in to pay her rent. She paid $50 a month for her cable bill. That was all she paid. Her rent was free. She was bitching because she had to pay $50 for cable and internet.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, I pay almost $1,800 a month. Now, I have 20 acres and a nice house, but I mean, I'll take your $50 a month and have internet and cable. Swear to God, I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Roof over your head, food to eat, and only have to pay $50.
Yeah.
Because you can almost guarantee, and I mean, this is just my thought, but you can almost guarantee there were food stamps involved as well.
But
And I'm just telling you that. I mean, people don't understand too that, and it's not. There was businesses. How screwed up is it that, you know, we want to know, you know, he makes a comment, well, the economic and where the crime's going up. Well, the Los Angeles Lakers got a $10 million PPP loan. So
do we wonder why inflation is where it is?
Now they did return that.
True. Yeah, but
And
you had
they
other people that were taking out several PPP loans, and they have been prosecuted. But in the meantime, that money's still gone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And, you know, I've known that my employer today took out a PPP loan. What did he do with that PPP loan? He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He paid his employees, whether they were here or not. And when they came back, he gave them bonuses. He made sure that they were taken care of financially. He did everything by the book. And that's the right thing to do. But there was a lot of people that didn't. And then when it all dries up and goes away, and these people are used to living $5,000 a week fantasies, well, what do? Well,
even if we're not looking at that kind of stuff, you know, when you look at people getting their stimulus checks and things from the government, and then you have the government saying that you don't have to worry about paying your rent, then what is the point of the stimulus? Why do they need the stimulus if you're not going to force them to pay the rent? If you're going to forgive all of their bills and you're still giving them money, and you are giving them EBT cards, you're giving them cellular phone service, why are you forgiving their bills?
Yeah.
You know, there's only one thing, and Manny, you probably disagree with it. There is only one thing that I have agreed with Joe Biden as far as economical things go, and that was the student loan debts. Yeah. I think we're in a system in America where you should not come out of college with a degree and be $100,000-200,000 in debt. I don't agree that you should start your life off with $200,000 in debt. I think that student loans are a scam.
I honestly do agree with that. You shouldn't have to start your life in debt. Some people are not meant for college. If you cannot pay for your college, you don't have to take a loan for it. Go find a different job.
Well, here's my thinking. Honestly, I think that there should be public and private institutions, which there are. I think the University of Miami, as a matter of fact, is a private institution, just off the top of my head, and USC as well. There's public and private institutions. All public institutions that are publicly funded, free college. All of these private institutions where, hey, you may get a better education, you're going to pay for it. There you go.
All I'm saying is you can go to National Park Community College or whatever it's called, and and get the same communications degree that you chose to go to freaking Notre Dame at. Okay.
Exactly.
You were the one that chose where you wanted to go. You were the one that chose that much money is what you needed. And you were the one that chose the stupidest freaking communication degree or art degree or one of these damn degrees that is not going to get you anything.
And guess what? You're doing exactly what we're doing with your communication degree, hosting a podcast that nobody watches. How you doing?
That's only because of you, Michael. But anyway.
Okay.
So that's why I disagree with what you're saying, Brad, on the whole forgiveness. I mean, these are banks, these are companies that have lent the money. Why should they not be reimbursed?
I think from my thinking, it's the ultimate predatory loan scheme. Where, hey,
second most. Credit cards are definitely the most.
Which one?
Credit cards.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, they are.
Very good point. And they both scheme on the same amount of people or the same type of people.
Yes.
Young
Payday
kids
loans.
who don't learn about credit in high school and all of that. And they go ahead and they ruin their lives because of it. And it's very, very sad.
I mean, I looked back at the pandemic and when you put someone in their home, I mean, I remember it too. I mean, I remember back in November, watching that cruise ship, and I was going, man, I hope that doesn't get off that thing. And then next thing you know, March Madness comes around, and it's like they shut down the basketball, and I thought, oh shit, they just shut down March Madness. This isn't good. And and then people are locked up. The only great thing is once you got past senior hour at the Dollar General, that son of a bitch was yours. The Dollar General was yours, baby. 8 o'clock, it was on. I didn't have to wait for shit.
I still remember waking up the next morning and watching, because I used to watch ESPN Sports Center every morning before I clocked in for work. And I remember watching the day after they canceled the Thunder and I think it was the Warrior game in Oklahoma City, because it was the Thunder and the Jazz, because Rudy Gobert tested positive. And I remember,
and he made a joke about it.
Oh shit, it's getting close. And then we had one pop positive in Pine Bluff, and I remember everything just going in fast forward, like dominoes just started falling, because when the one in Pine Bluff happened, within a week we were sent home. And then
for us over here, it was Oaklawn Racetrack. Whenever I found out that somebody was positive at Oaklawn Racetrack, I called my wife, I called my family. I told them, if you go get gas, do not do it at any of the pumps around the racetrack.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And luckily, whether it had been dangerous as they wanted us to believe or what have you, luckily we all got through it. And guess what? We fucking defeated COVID. Fuck COVID.
Right. But to kind of get back on topic with what we would need for a tyrannical government, I mean, you look at things like Ruby Ridge, you look at things like Waco, Texas. You look at times when the government has overstepped their boundaries. You look at everything they've done with
the Democratic administration was in office too. I know for sure Waco was clean.
Right. You look at what the CIA, the FBI has done with the JFK assassination, Martin Luther King assassination, the way they've covered that stuff. You look at the Clinton crime syndicate. I mean, yes, this is why we feel that we need 30-round mags. This is the reason why we feel we need what you want to call an assault rifle. There are reasons. This is why it is in our Constitution that we shall arm ourselves to prevent the government from overstepping their boundaries.
Absolutely.
Well, if you go back and you look at Waco, you look at how that all started. The FBI literally set Koresh up on weapons, a shipment of weapons, set him up, and then that's how they got their affidavit. And then Janet Reno, who had a physically bigger set of balls than Hillary Clinton, started taking over, and then they came in. I'm telling you, dude, you know why Hillary never wore a dress in the White House? They couldn't figure out how to hide her balls. But
was that the point?
I digress. But But you look at now, was David Koresh a psycho? Yes, he was. Was he diddling little kids? Absolutely. And he was wrong in what he was thinking. He thought he was Jesus Christ or the next incumbent to that.
No, he didn't think he was Jesus Christ. He thought he was the Lamb of God. Two different things, according to him.
Well, he was a little out there, and I'm not saying what he. Now, the gentleman over at Ruby Ridge, he got the shaft. That guy
So did the people in Waco
screwed.
because they had
fair,
a
that's not
dealer's
correct.
license to buy and sell firearms. They were doing everything by the book.
Outside
They had an FBI agent that went in and said, yes, he's doing it all by the book.
Little tidbit on that.
They were all good people.
A little tidbit on the Ruby Ridge, and you may know this, Manny, Michael, you may not. Do you know what catastrophic major event in United States soil happened because of some of the influences at Ruby Ridge?
What's that?
Oklahoma City bombing.
The bombing,
True.
yeah.
Definitely Waco, I know, played a big role in that as well, he said.
Yes, he had cited both of those incidents.
Absolutely.
Ruby Ridge, there was a commune of anti-government, anti-establishment, I guess, groups that met up close to that vicinity, and I think that he was actually going to, I forget his McVeigh. I think he was actually in one of them for a while, and then Ruby Ridge kind of exploded into what it was, and it molded him. And actually, another thing, he had targeted in his manifesto that they found the Trade Center in Little Rock.
Yeah.
But because of Bill Clinton's presidency, but he said that the civilian liability lived life, or the liability of non-governmental operational workers wasn't enough. So he went over to the federal trade. But there's a whole thing on that because,
Absolutely.
But anyway, yeah, that's just how. But that's the thing about it, man. It only takes one person to get fed up and get screwed over, and then what's the government do? They don't have a problem bringing them. They brought tanks in.
Like Ruby Ridge wasn't even somebody getting fed up. It was a person happened to be outside and saw another person shoot their dog. So it was an unknown person because they never identified themselves. An unknown person shoots my dog. I shoot back at them because I have no idea who this person is or what their intentions are. And then they want to claim that this whole thing happened because they were firing on us.
Yeah.
Like I'm the type of person, you hit my dog and I'm probably shooting your ass.
The deal with David Koresh was they got a warrant. If they would have went and served the warrant, the crazy thing is David Koresh invited them to come and look at their complex. And they said, no, we're good. And then wait until the last day to be able to serve this warrant, to storm the place the way they did instead of actually going and serving a warrant and looking at everything.
And I'm always of the opinion that it was the smoke canisters that were administered by force through the building, through the walls that caught that building on fire. I do not think that they intentionally set that self on fire, even though they had bunkers for it. I don't think they did.
You're fucking retarded if you believe that that they set themselves on fire. Honestly, you're fucking retarded.
Right.
Okay, gentlemen, let's go ahead and move on to our last topic for the evening before we run out of time here. Let's talk about the primetime hearings because I promised Brad that I would give you some highlights from this wonderfully.
I wish we could do this show at 5 o'clock in the afternoon so that I could go play in traffic during this segment.
The quote-unquote explosive night of testimony for January 6th from NBC News.
Donald Trump was at the center of this conspiracy. And ultimately, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, spurred a mob of domestic enemies of the Constitution to march down the Capitol and subvert American democracy. Any legal jargon you hear about seditious conspiracy, obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to defraud the United States boils down to this. January 6th was the culmination of an attempted coup.
Over multiple months, Donald Trump oversaw and coordinated a sophisticated 7-part plan to overturn the presidential election and prevent the transfer of presidential power. You will hear about members of the Trump cabinet discussing the possibility of invoking the 25th Amendment and replacing the President of the United States. You will hear that President Trump was yelling and, quote, really angry at advisors who told him he needed to be doing something more. And aware of the rioters' chance to hang Mike Pence, the president responded with this sentiment, quote, maybe our supporters have the right idea. Mike Pence, quote, deserves it.
What I saw was just a war scene. It was something like I'd seen out of the movies. I couldn't believe my eyes. There were officers on the ground, you know, they were bleeding, they were throwing up, they were, you know, they had, I mean, I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood. You know, I was catching people as they fell. It was carnage. It was chaos.
Holy shit, was this bitch on fucking storming Normandy, or did she fucking work at the Capitol? Because I'm just saying, any video I've seen of the Capitol in January 6th, I haven't seen people with enough blood to fucking be slipping in blood and catching people. Like, good Lord, I'd feel some type of way if I bought into that shit. Manny, first off, let's start off with the Mike Pence comments. Brad, Manny, y'all, I have a hard time finding any way that Trump would not say that in jest. Honestly, terrible thing,
right?
Out, but that's
right, you've got that. But I want to point out, you know, you look back at the whole Maxine Waters comments when she was telling people to confront Trump supporters, to confront his administration as they see them out there, and to harass them. I mean, she literally said, confront them and harass them.
She did. She absolutely.
Trump never told these people, hey, we need to go and bomb places, or we need to go and take these places over.
Maybe they have the right idea. Come on now, y'all. Hey, Brad, I'll let you say it, because like I'm just literally, they can take anything they want. And this is why, like, literally, I had somebody say something Friday evening who is an avid Trump supporter who was like, well, shit, after watching that, I might believe it. And this is kind of what we've talked about before, Brad, about documentaries and how they only slant one side. The January 6th Commission's job last Monday, when they had these hearings in prime time, where the most amount of Americans would watch them, was to convince you that they were doing the right thing. A biased Democratic committee.
No, bullshit. Like Manny said, where was the outcry for Maxine Waters? Where was the outcry for Schumer to tell him he's going to pay the price? Now, like we've always said, you know, it's Donald Trump. One of the best presidents we've had, just doesn't know how to shut the hell up sometimes. And you know, like I told you last week, Trump says things that we all say around the dinner table that we probably won't admit to out in public. But the point of the matter is that, you know, Trump felt like there was some irregularities within the voting. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and Manny, I've watched plenty of political elections when it comes to the presidential race, dating back to, you know, I was born in '78. But I had a pretty decent grasp because I would, you know, do fake newscast about the election, because I'd always kind of had this dream of being, you know, on the television or whatever and doing that. But I've never seen, I know, right. I've never seen a place like a presidential election get paused at 2:00 in the morning and not resume again until 8 o'clock. I've never seen a single pause in any election.
Right. That was going on whenever they get to talking about how the verifiers were not allowed to be within certain perimeter of the actual votes.
Could you imagine if that would have happened during the Gore v. Bush recount in 2000? Oh, Jesus
Right.
Christ.
When they talked about papers for mail-in ballots coming in that were unfolded, so there was no way they could have been mailed in, and they were sequentially numbered, so they weren't randomly sent in. When you have stuff like that and it's never talked about, of course you're going to start asking questions about whether or not
that were
there's
never
some issues
verified.
here.
You had signatures on ballots that were never verified. They could have done that.
To be fair, here's the thing. Again, was there irregularities in 2020 in the presidential election and the way it was held? Abso-fucking-lutely. You will not ask any sane individual if there were irregularities with the way 2020 went down, and they tell you that there wasn't. I'm not here to say that there's a conspiracy. I do believe that Joe Biden won that presidential election. I think that, in a lot of cases, Donald Trump did it to himself. And, we've been over that multiple times over the past 2 years. I will say this, though. Again, if you do not think that there were irregularities, that even myself, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, some of these I bought. 2 million votes supposedly just going into Joe Biden's category, and I think it was Minnesota. Come on now. But the fact that there were irregularities, even I'm questioning, okay, what happened here? What happened here? There are things you are allowed to question. Again, 2000, one of the most...
No, Michael, though. You're missing the point. You keep bringing up 2000. Manny probably remembers this. They called for a halt on the certification of the election results in 2000 because of what happened. But now all of a sudden it's wrong. I mean, to me, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So, but going back to the Mike Pence comments, if Trump said, well, maybe they were right. I mean, that doesn't incite a riot.
Right.
People are going to riot anyway. And you know what? It doesn't matter, man. I mean, it doesn't. There should be. I mean, if you have a protest, that's one thing. But when you start breaking windows and you start burning cars and all of this, and I know, Michael, you were a part of the ones down in Little Rock. Me and you have had some pretty heated discussions about what went on down there. But I have to look at it like this. These people have come to see what's happened in larger cities. And once the first wave of action starts going, they try to jump ahead of the curve and control it before it spirals out of control. And that's the thing. There are peaceful protests, but unfortunately, infiltrators join in there and they want to just cause complete anarchy like they did in Seattle, like they did in Minnesota, California. We'll go back to the Rodney King riots. My God, they almost killed Los Angeles. I mean, they did.
Done us a favor if that would have happened.
Right, and it wasn't just protesting what had happened. It was, okay, well, while they're over there protesting, I'm going to go in here and get some shoes. I'm going to go in here and get a TV.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Absolutely agree with that statement. And I mean, the reason why I go back to 2000, though, Brad, and you make a very valid point. I think the difference in the two situations was it was the Supreme Court that halted the certification in 2000. Where
the Congress people came out and called for this decertification of the presidential election. But then it was bad for when Trump and his supporters said it. It was bad for them to say it, but we can say it. That's the thing is, man, there's heads on the Democratic side. When you flip a coin, there's heads and heads.
Absolutely.
There's no heads and tails. It's heads and heads. Doesn't matter.
Well, and to be fair, again, I think hypocrisy's throughout politics, whether it's left or right, but absolutely agree with you. Yeah. And
it just seems like, and I'm not saying that Republicans aren't hypocritical at times. But what I'm saying is you go back and you look, and I don't know if any one of y'all watched House of Cards?
Yes, absolutely.
No, I've been told that I need to watch it, though.
Yes, you do.
Let me tell you something. I watched that in its entirety. I binge watched it because that's what I do. I find it easier than sitting through, having to wait a week.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, they asked Bill Clinton and Obama about that, and Bill Clinton said that it was almost accurate, except there wasn't enough death.
Hey, I wouldn't doubt it.
And Obama said it was pretty realistic. And you look at the positioning and the power plays that happened in there. Like I said before, it's gonna take a massive movement against someone in Washington, D.C., if they really wanted to enact policy. Right now, all they're doing is I don't believe in false flags, even though I'm a conspiracy theory guy. I don't believe that everything's a false flag, but I do believe that they throw these little things out there at you to divert your attention away from something else. I've always been told when something major happens, go to the B section of the newspaper and read it carefully, and you'll see what they're actually trying to do.
Well, and it's actually interesting that you bring that up, but here's the main goal that I think that Democrats have stated on multiple occasions that they want to do with this January 6th situation. They want to disqualify President Trump from being able to run in 2024. Here's the thing. Again, I've said this before, and I'll go on record as saying it again. I do not think, unless he's just a fucking glutton for punishment, I don't think that Donald Trump is running for president in 2000.
No, but I guarantee you Trump will run. He's got too much fuck you in him.
Very true. But I will also
and by the way, on that commission, might I just say that Liz Cheney, you can shut the fuck up and you can go hunting with your warmongering father who tears down countries and then brings his own company, Halliburton, in to repair them, you piece of shit bitch.
I will say this, though. Unless he's a glutton for punishment,
sorry, I do apologize for that. I hate her. I fucking hate her with a fucking passion.
I think that he doesn't run in 2024. However, I also think that there is absolutely nothing that Joe Biden can do at this point to prevent President Greg Abbott or President Ron DeSantis. Which,
Michael, I will bet you $500 today that Trump runs and wins the primaries. I guarantee it.
If he runs, he wins the primaries. I
think President Trump would win. I think he would win the election because we're talking in 2024. She really think this shit's going to get better in 2 years?
I don't think it'll get better. I still think it'll be close. I think if he won, it would be by a.
Oh no, I think that he does. I think that he landslides. I really do, because I think this country's tired of it. I really do. I think they're tired of what's going on. And just like that story you ran, the shift that's happening, I think that people are understanding this. You know, you're going to have your handout crowd and your, whoever, I want minimum wage to be $30 an hour crowd that's going to come out and they're going to vote. But I don't think it's enough. I think that the people have had enough, and I think Trump will run and Trump will win.
It's actually interesting. I forgot about that story, Brad, but Manny, you missed this last week. There is data that the Wall Street Journal was reporting last week that I got a story for. The Hispanic vote in 2020 was higher for Trump than it was in 2016.
Really? Wow.
Quite interesting. It appears that the Hispanic vote is moving towards the Republican Party,
Republican
which I find
side,
very interesting considering the narrative and the fact that Democrats are basically begging Hispanic voters to come to their party.
Well, I've been watching some videos on YouTube that talk about the culture in America, and one of the ones that they covered was Hispanics, and they're saying that Hispanics, as a whole, seem to have assimilated into the American culture so much easier than anybody else. That there are, Hispanics who are worried that their children don't know Spanish, which I don't, won't really understand their culture, are marrying outside of their races and ethnicities at a larger rate than your African Americans or your Asians or even your Germanic people. So it doesn't really surprise me that the Hispanics are starting to vote more toward the Republicans.
It's absolutely interesting because I know Cubans have always been big for the Republican Party, but now with that Asian, and again, you got to look to where is your representation. Let's be honest. There's a
Right.
lot more Marco Rubios in the Republican Party than there are AOCs in the Democratic Party. So
Right.
maybe a key factor. Let's go ahead and hit our American Idiot of the Week. This week, my American Idiot of the Week is going to be easy. It's going to
Before we go there,
go ahead.
I never really had a chance to talk about it. We had talked about some of this pride stuff that was coming up.
Oh, yes. I was going to hit that, but unfortunately,
we ran out of time, and I get that. I just wanted to point out that Lightyear, the new Disney movie, has been banned in Malaysia and Abu Dhabi and Dubai due to a kiss scene between two females. The United Arab Emirates are condemning Disney, and Disney fears that other Muslim majority nations will follow.
It's actually interesting, and especially that video you sent us inside of the chat. For everybody that didn't get to see that video, because I'm sure you probably didn't, because Manny only sent it in our private chat. It's very interesting, though. It's kind of one of those congratulations, you played yourself kind of videos, because everybody that is sitting here, talking about these great companies that move their icons during Pride Month to these rainbow flags, and they show their pride, which again, good for them. I'm very happy for the people that are feeling safe enough that they can make that decision for their lives. But it's interesting because everybody's talking about how good these companies are, but if you notice and you look, those same companies aren't changing anything as far as their public image in Russia, the Middle East, anything like that.
It's not a company-wide thing. Yeah, they're only doing it for the individuals that they feel can profit them the most.
It's a lot like the Democratic Party. They play politics.
So yeah, it has nothing to do with backing gay rights or LGBTQ or Black Lives Matters or any of these other places. It has to do with making themselves look good for you so that you will spend money with them.
Oh, Apple.
Well, I mean, the thing too.
Rainbow flag. I don't want to go get this droid anymore.
No, it's called the rainbow. It's rainbow capitalism. Let's sell every fucking thing with a rainbow on it. You look at companies like that, and obviously, y'all missed I don't know if you saw it. Walmart took a bunch of bullshit for putting out a Juneteenth ice cream.
I did see that. That was interesting.
I mean, I was under them. I don't know. Maybe it's they considered it exploitation of it, but to me, I mean, if you put that out there, just kind of put eyes on it, and yeah, I'm sure Walmart was exploiting it, but
I compare that, Brad, to a local flyer that maybe you were familiar with that had David Basil on it for a Juneteenth celebration inside of Little Rock. So Walmart.
You say David Basil? You lost me at David Basil. Fuck him.
Walmart is doing a whole entire thing for, Juneteenth, trying to bring awareness to it and gets knocked for it. Meanwhile, in the city of Little Rock, somebody put a Juneteenth celebration together and actually made this flyer. And Manny, I shit you not, every single one of the every single one of the speakers for this Juneteenth celebration, the pictures, white. All of them. Who the fuck approves that shit?
Yeah, that's white America right there. I mean, yeah.
That would be appropriation. I apologize, Brad. Continue.
Well, what I did, Manny, I wanted to ask you, you were going back to the Hispanic thing, but now, obviously, a lot of people who don't know you would instantly probably associate your appearance with someone that would have gone against Donald Trump and his ideology, or his so-called ideology as the mainstream one to perceive it. What kind of flack did you take if you came out and supported Trump, especially around 2016 in that era when it was build a wall, send them back? Did you have to hear any of it?
Quite a bit, actually. I had a lot of people that questioned me on how I could support somebody that was so racist how I could support somebody that was after my kind of people. And I pointed out, I pointed out that his issue isn't with immigration, it's with illegal immigration. There's a big difference. If you want to come into this country, there are ways to do it. There are ports of entry for you to come through and explain your situation. But if you feel that you have to sneak across borders and climb through the deserts and cross rivers to get over here, then something is wrong.
And you know, I will say this too, that you didn't get to point out, but I'm sure you know about it. In a lot of cases, what shutting illegal immigration does is it prevents people who are on the other side of the wall from taking advantage of people to get them over here illegally. In a lot of cases, a lot of these people end up owing these
coyotes,
smugglers, lots of money, and they're pretty much in debt and in servitude to these people. Whereas if they were able to come over just through the legal channels, they wouldn't have to worry about that.
Right.
A lot of people forget that aspect when we talk about the immigration situation.
But yeah, to answer your question, Brad, I took quite a bit of flack.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you had to cut through all the ivy, if you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Kind of quit.
Okay, y'all, let's go ahead and hit our American Idiot of the Week. This week, my American Idiot.
Can I go first?
Okay.
So, I watched this. Okay, so my American Idiot of the Week is actually two people. One is the state of Alabama, and the other is the father of this lady that passed away last year. He literally petitioned the court and got this man arrested on littering charges for placing flowers at the father's daughters. It was his fiance, the man that he had arrested. The father-in-law to be had this man arrested and charged with littering and other things because he didn't approve of their relationship before she died, and they were engaged to be married. And so they arrested the gentleman, they fined him, and said, "We won't put you in jail as long as you please stop putting flowers on her grave."
What a piece of shit.
My American Idiot of the Week is the courts in Alabama and the father of the bride to be. That, and I don't know the situation, what happened. He didn't approve of the wedding or the marriage, and they were engaged. A month later, she dies. He puts flowers on her grave. They arrest him after now the father-in-law did say, "Hey, quit putting flowers on my daughter's grave." And to me, it's a box of flowers. He's not digging her up and getting one last piece or any of that shit. He's putting flowers on her grave. And because your punk ass doesn't approve of the relationship, you're going to have the man arrested and charged with littering, and you're going to fine him $250.
Please tell me you did not just say dig her up to get one last piece.
Well, something's got to spice shit up. I mean, look, y'all both know me. Y'all both worked with me in the wrestling capacity. I'm not fucked up about saying shit. So I'm just going to put it out there. It's happening. I mean, look, hey, it's hard not to be a heel sometimes. Just say it.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, y'all. Mine's easy. I'm going with the dumbass that decided he was going to fucking fight Brett Kavanaugh, potentially rolling back and making it easier to own weapons by trying to buy a weapon to kill Brett Kavanaugh. What the fuck? Manny, okay. I'm sure I'm going to die laughing at this one.
No, because you already got a peek into it. Blake Lamone, this nut Google engineer that said that he thinks that chatbot has become a sentient being. I mean, are we not forgetting that these chatbots are there to hear your response and give appropriate responses back?
Right.
It's doing its program. It has not become sentient. It is not telling you how it feels because it feels nothing. It is saying words that you can comprehend to put you at ease, to put you at ease, not to put itself at ease.
I'm sure there's probably a little bit more to that.
Hey, maybe he's offended because he forgot it was a robot and tried to marry it. Hey Siri.
Oh, he's probably like sits in front of his computer lab, rubs one out to this thing going, oh yeah, oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, do I think that computers?
To tell him he had a little dick and he got mad.
Oh, he would have changed it so that it would think little was big.
Yeah, true. He would remember he was a computer programmer.
Did he consult with you, Michael? I mean, sorry.
Okay, everybody. With that being said, we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. For Manny, Hispani, and Brad, I am Money Mike. We will see you guys next Monday night for the American Idiot Show. Good night, everybody.